All right. Oh, it took me a second there to realize I was live. Just staring at me, staring off into space. Hey, WJ, long time no see. Somebody's been watching Monster of the Week. That's funny that you mentioned that because I was at this really interesting little shop yesterday. I don't want to say New York because I don't think it's necessarily more than other places, but you can sometimes find these interesting little shops. And yesterday I ran into a shop that was part cafe, part vintage store, and they actually had these I guess movie monster zines from the 70s, and they had some really neat ones. Like I kind of was tempted to pick one up. Maybe I'll go back and pick one up. So you mentioned Monster of the Week, and totally made me think about that. Well, I missed Talk Like a Friday. As I'm recording this, Talk Like a Pirate Day was yesterday, which is when I really should have done this read along. But that's me, always half a step behind. In any case, Pirate Borg is out, and this, as is, I don't want to say usual, but Free League was kind enough to send me this, so I will put the promotional thing, even though they send me a copy of the digital book. They don't obviously have no input into what I say, because even I don't know what I'm going to say until I say it, and I haven't looked at it until just now, only pretty much this page, because I just downloaded it, so I have no idea what I'm going to say about it, and it's live. But in any case, they have no control over it. They're just kind enough to send this along for me to look at. So as always, I appreciate them, but it doesn't really have any input on what I say about it. Let's just get into it. I don't think I have anything else. I don't really have anything else to say, other than I guess the authors. It's not so this is compatible with Mork Borg. It's called Pirate Borg. Borg is in the name. I noticed one of the names here, Limithron, who I'm not familiar with, but I don't think it's the same folks Limithron's definitely not one of the original folks. So I don't know obviously this is posted by Free League, so it is part of the kind of official thing, but different authors, different designer, different artist, I guess, than Mork Borg original, though clearly it's going to, I presume, we can see already, it's stylistically, it's going to fit in very well in the Mork Borg universe, so to speak. On this time I don't have a physical copy, so I'm presuming this would be kind of your interior first couple pages. So we get some tables, get a name, get a weather table, an NPC motivation table, a carousing table, a drinking rum and grog table, always nice, and a loot the body table. All important things if you're going to play some kind of pirate on a weird Spanish main. Oh, here we got the interior. Okay, so the writing, illustration, layout are by Luke Stratton and Limithron. I'm not familiar with either of them, but that's because I'm not in the loop on most things. Pirate Borg is a game about grog-swilling pirates, undead galleons, arcane treasures found in ancient temples, and high seas adventure. It's not a game about slavery, sexual violence, genocide, or any of the other abhorrent real parts of our history. Please treat these topics with the respect they deserve, or leave them out of the game altogether and go hunt some skeletons. I really think that's a good note. And I mentioned this. I mentioned this on, I guess, on my wrap-up stream. It would have been Monday stream, and I apologize because Monday stream came out horribly. I had some weird video issues. Hopefully, you're not having video issues as you're watching this. Thankfully, I think the audio was okay. But there's a tendency I have seen, particularly in the OSR sphere, to take a historical basis for something or a literary basis and then have this idea that we must cling to it in all things. And I could see somebody saying easily with we're going to play in the Caribbean, then, we have to have slavery, we have to have genocide, we have to have these things. And I like to make clear, like, if you're not going to treat them with the kind of respect they deserve because they were horrible things that happened in our history, don't do it. But this game's it's not about that, right? Obviously they can't stop you from inserting in your game, but we're not about that. And I wish some of these other products, some of them would seem really interesting, but they get bogged down in that we have to simulate history, even though we're playing weird pirates and undead galleons and all kinds of strange stuff. Somehow it's important that we are historically accurate. It's like may not be that important. And I think if that's really the goal, you have to treat it a lot better than I think it gets treated. So just a little appreciation for that. All right, I got some of the notes. Here is a map. It does have some hexes in there. I don't know if we have a scale, but it's called the Dark Caribbean. And let's see. I don't know if we get it. Can we tell from that? It does have a key here of miles. 100 miles. So, okay. So 50 miles, 100 miles. I guess it looks like, so maybe each of these hexes is 50 miles wide from, and from, so they are the pointy topped hexes. And so I guess that would be a 50-mile wide hex. Hey, Ian, which probably makes good sense for the ocean. And presumably, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see whether if there is an expectation, what is it about how much you're spending time in the oceans versus on land? Because I think for the oceans, I think 50 miles is good. I don't know if I'd want that for the land, but that's probably not the focus of what you're doing. I don't even think they really have hexes on the land. I don't see any. I suppose I could zoom in and look. Whoops. Yeah, I don't even think it's important on this map. The land is just a barrier to the ocean. So that makes sense. And yes, I guess as Ian's pointing out, because this is using real our world, the Caribbean map, at least as some kind of basis, you could use lots of maps and map fragments and bits of historical maps if you wanted to. Things like different hand-drawn maps from the period, which I guess we're looking at maybe 1600s to, or maybe I guess 1500s to, I mean, I don't know exactly. We'll see. Are they going to give us firearms rules, things like that? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yes, you do have access then to using all kinds of cool stuff that just exists in our world. Early explorers thought the Caribbean was paradise. They found nothing but deserted islands and bountiful treasures. It wasn't until thousands had left their crowded, blighted homelands and settled in among the islands that they encountered the Scourge. It began on the solstice. Haunting screams echoed over sandy beaches. And from the death, oh, for some reason I saw that black as hack. Let me read that again. Haunting screams echoed over sandy beaches, and from the death-black waves crawled the undead. Terror spread like wildflower. Terror spread like wildfire. At first they came in single numbers, but hordes gestated, and soon settlements were blotted out by a torrent of lifeless, nameless creatures. Possessed flesh of, oh my gosh, what's going on with me today? Possessed flesh of dead sailors, ghosts of displaced inhabitants, skeletal constructs shrouded in seaweed and muck, and horrible monsters born from the unknowable dark places in the world. They emerged from the sea and consumed all. The meek had nowhere to flee but to their graves, only to rise again at dusk. Survivors fortified cities and bolstered strongholds. Soon after, the effects of ash were discovered. A new status quo was born. Okay. Ian says that they don't have the cross-reference right now, but they should be a timeline in a few pages. Cool. So at least they'll give us an idea of what time period they're in. So we were introduced to, obviously, the main antagonists or obstacles in this world, which are the undead crawling out from the seas, which is a cool image. Very Pirates of the Caribbean movie-ish. And we were introduced to this concept called ash. So what exactly is ash? It's a noun. The remnants of destroyed undead, first discovered in the Dark Caribbean, known to have physiological and psychedelic effects when consumed, extremely valuable, responsible for numerous conflicts, trade disputes, and an influx of black markets. Addicts can be spotted by their sunken eye sockets, darkened lips, and faintly glowing bones. I'm not sure how you see someone's glowing bones, but I guess there are some areas of our body where the bones are pretty close to the surface where you're going to be able to see that. That's definitely an interesting tell. So we have a table here. We can roll on what the current market for ash is, and we also have some other tables for the effects consuming ash. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I guess if this is what you would roll, it's a D20. You roll it, I guess, when you consume it. If on a 1, you overdose and you pass out for some amount of rounds. You have to test your toughness or you die instantly. Basically, if you overdose, it's pretty much a save or die situation. And then other things could be you hear colors, see sounds, and feel taste. You might gain some temporary hit points. You could gain a permanent +1 to your mental stat because you achieve some mental transcendence, so you get some extra presence. You might get some extra spirit. So there's definitely some potential positives to consuming ash. I guess they say darken lips, so I guess do you eat ash? Do you make it into a swill and drink it? Do you snort it? What exactly do you do? Or I guess it's up to you. I guess you could make that a player-driven thing. Hey, Heroes and Homebrew says, Pirate Zombie Apocalypse. I can get behind that. Yeah. I don't know if there's many people who wouldn't get behind it. On New Providence Island is Nassau Town, the ruins of an imperial colony. Now it is barely more than a collection of driftwood shacks and canvas tents. At night, cooking fires litter rum-soaked beaches like drunk fireflies. Here, the brethren of the coast lie in wait for the call of the sea. Ooh, interesting. An outcast tribe of rebels, thieves, and vagabonds, their lust for riches and debauchery is only surpassed by an unyielding demand for freedom. The long reach of imperialism is a vapid memory that wanes with the crumbling ruins of the island's lone seaside fort. It is a bastion against law, order, and responsibility. To the south, the piratical outpost on the small island of Tortuga has devolved into a cesspool of vagrants and rapscallions. Ash, the primary commodity, is smuggled, sold, stolen, snorted, smoked, and sequestered. Each night, parvenus squander a year's wages on chemical escapism, carnal pleasures, and games of chance in a myriad of taverns, brothels, and ash dens. Okay, here lies the still-beating black heart of the Republic of Pirates. Bum, bum, bum. All right, cool. I'm curious, is it the fires keep the undead away? Because it doesn't seem like they've got walls. Maybe they do. And now we have the British Empire rots from within. Endless warmongering and blatant imperialism have bled their treasuries dry. All but abandoned by the crown, the few ports that still fly the Union Jack have become obsequious to the Machiavellian West India Company. Lord Hamilton, governor of the Jamaica colony, is despondent in the eye of the storm. While his subordinates scramble to rebuild Port Royal after a preternatural earthquake, he conscripts a fleet of tenebrous privateers in hopes of avoiding his inevitable ruin. God save us all. I mean, as usual with the Mork Borg stuff, the artwork is and the layout are always interesting. I think one thing is there's not as much of the super gothic font, though there is here in the British and in the name Lord Hamilton and Port Royal, but it's got that, the kind of 18th century. I don't know the name of the. I've seen different names for it. You can kind of get similar fonts, but it's a little bit more readable, I think, especially when they vary the sizes of stuff, which I appreciate. But yeah, great. And so you can see kind of the Union Jack sort of in the background, but almost like it's been spray painted or splashed with using blood. Very cool. And I like that, the silhouettes. So we're getting some idea of the factions. Now we have another one. The French Indies. On the western shore of Hispaniola, whispers of revolution gestate in the festering colony of Petit Gove. Once an ivory tower of the French monarchy, it is now no more than a rotting figurehead, and a clandestine network of spies and assassins flourish in the vacuum left by a preoccupied king. Its harbors overflow with merchant vessels like flies on a carcass, and the bourgeoisie acquiesce to the whims of capitalistic crime syndicates and malevolent cultists. To the east, among the small wild islands known as the Lesser Antilles, is Guadeloupe. An opulent palace and extravagantly decorated forts shadow impoverished slums and crumbling warrens. Here, hedonistic aristocrats turn a blind, drunken eye to the incompetent and bloated military's patriarchal conquests. All can be bought and sold, including munitions, letters of marque, undercover agents, ash, courtesans, scandals, false hope, and sanctuary. Let's see. Ian says that in their opinion, this book is much more table usable than Mork Borg. And Here's an Homebrew says the art has a very Mike Mignola Hellboy feel. I can see that. I can see that on all fronts. So we got just kind of a very brief what I guess what I like about this part here is we get these factions, very flavorful, very brief, not a bunch of mechanics to go along with it, but I don't really need that. To me, it's more like it gets my wheels turning. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of mechanical stuff. Who knows if it'll be faction oriented, but just good. It seems some really, well, I like to get some really strong flavor for these different parts of the Caribbean. You can look them up on the map. Some of these places. You ever play a Sid? Or I guess I'm dating myself, but the original Sid Meier's Pirates game was always. I used to play that game for just ages and ages, and I feel like I have a reference map in the Caribbean of my head from playing that game. So here we have these other ones. Look like one looks kind of conquistador-ish, and then this is the other guy on the other side of the page looks almost, I want to say, kind of Assassin Creed-like, or just, I guess, because he's got the cowl and hood. On the western shores of Cuba, the capital of the Viceroyalty of New Spain shines like a greedy candle sputtering in a smoke-cloaked room. Here in Havana, brightly painted stucco and lush palm fronds mask the corrupt whims of the overcrowded metropolis. Aristocrats, politicians, and puppet masters pull the strings of a dying kingdom, their threads woven from subterfuge and propaganda. Fortresses armed with countless cannons guard an impenetrable harbor where seasonal treasure fleets amass before transporting silver, gold, and ash back east. Across the sea, at the mouth of Lake Maracaibo, the citadel towers over the nearby jungle like a mass of razor-sharp coral protruding at high tide. Here the Inquisition weaves its devious web. Their nest, the endless dungeons sunken deep beneath the city. Their prey, countless heretics forced into endless repentance. Sailors flee from the cries of the banshee that haunts these waters, but it is only the screams of the damned and nothing more. All right, so like more, just great flavor. And you get kind of an idea here about what each place offers. Certainly, we're basically told you don't want to end up in the Inquisition. You don't want to end up in the Citadel. Not at all. Cuba is very kind of locked down tight. But that's also where the treasure fleets are going, so you might want to watch that if that's something that you're interested in. It seems like, let's see, we had in the French Indies and Petit Gove, it seems like everything can be bought and sold, so that's a place to go if you need. They went down a list, right? They didn't get prices, but just the idea is come by, letters of marque, we need munitions, we need to head to Petit Gove. And then, of course, who knows what's going on with the pirates that we can deal with, and then the British. So very flavorful, very simple, but it pretty much gives you all you need. And you could, and I would probably copy paste that into something for a player's handout, or read it to them as part of session 0 or intro when you're getting ready to create your characters. I haven't seen their character sheets or not, but I would probably want to think, well, where are you aligned to start the game? Are you obviously going to be adventurers and together, but in terms of that background, what's your nationality? Are you just a pirate and you had no allegiance to anybody, or were you coming from New Spain or the French or the British? The Dave says they like this game a lot more than Mort Borg. They backed the Kickstarter a while back. The game has a good feel to it. And Ian agrees with the Dave. Says they feel like Mort Borg is more like Proto Borg, and so many more cool things have been built and improved off of it. I like Proto Borg. Now we have a bit about the Wretched. Clandestine cultists with eldritch ambitions, their secret society hidden in plain sight among sailors and townsfolk. Each solstice, their prophet, the Sunken One, submerges in briny shallows. He returns with omens from the great old ones, and these new psalms are sanguinated into the only book that ever mattered. Their altar, the abyss. Their prayer for those that once were to return from the depths, that's the Necronomicon, sorry. The only book that ever mattered, the Necronomicon. Their altar, the abyss. Their prayer for those that once were to return from the depths and commence the end of days. I haven't played enough Mort Borg to really see. I think it speaks well to the quality of the post-Mort Borg products that they feel like they've improved upon it. Because it's not always the case. Sometimes I look at some of the things that people have done to improve upon the systems. And I think, I kind of like the simpler thing better. I think also that they're just moving in interesting directions. And even though the particular brand of like Scandinavian death metal fantasy I think it's really cool. It's not maybe it's not as different, or it doesn't stand out as much as maybe some of these other ones do. And so they're able to borrow that aesthetic and apply it to something else and add a few things to it. I need to play more Borg though, but I definitely this is something that I would be super interested in playing and running just from what I've read just now. Let's see. Noxious Bones, which is a great name for this stream, says they've had incredible fun running this game. Such a rich punch in each table, and the character classes are so wonderfully immersive. Ooh, great. And Fluffy the Griffin says they can't wait for Trek Borg. Yeah, well, I couldn't help it. When I keep hearing Borg, sorry, I couldn't help. I was wondering too if later on people are going to be, maybe it'd be great for my YouTube views and all these Trekkies come bouncing in going, what, Pirate Borg? And it's about, a tabletop role-playing game. Well, I thought about trying to get, if I had more time, I would have tried to mock up some kind of Borg attachment for Kevin Kline and from that Pirates of Penzance pick, which you can't see yet, but what you will see, because I do have a thumbnail for it. I just didn't have time to add it before the stream started. So later on, you will see my Pirates of the Penzance kind of thumbnail for this, and I was going to add a Borg bit to it. Maybe I still will, since I actually have time. Noxious Bones also says their homebrew setting is a flooded fantasy archipelago, and this book really brought it to life at the table. Wow, that's a very cool setting, and I can imagine that this would be helpful in that. Far to the west, evil wells in the Yucatan. Folk tales of cities made of gold and temples ripe with untapped fortunes cause the meek, like the befouled carcass, taunts the vulture. The borders reek. See, yeah, this I'll have to say, this font is a little bit rougher for me for whatever reason. Maybe I should, there we go, lower the glasses. The borders reek of rot, yet the jungle calls to those who listen. Like the heretic Cortez, see that R and that T are almost, gosh, they're really, like, could have, I don't know. It's Cortez, or I'm assuming it's Cortez, but, like the heretic Cortez, none who have ventured into that execrable labyrinth have returned to tell the tale. See, I was just saying how the font's a little better, but that font's a bit rough. It's that R and that T are so close together. I know that oftentimes, because I've done some calligraphy work, and I've off and on I'll practice it, and in a lot of calligraphy, the T is not as raised up as the L's and H go all the way up. They ascend all the way, whereas oftentimes T's do not. But I think the T needs to rise up a bit more than the other letters. It's got to have a little bit more rise to it, in my opinion. Okay, so now here's that timeline that Ian had mentioned. So we have a general history of the Dark Caribbean, chronicling the events and happenings in the islands of the New World and their utter descent into apocalypse. So it's split up into chapters. I don't know exactly how to read this. It says, use this timeline in any way you see fit, as historical records, rumors, plot hooks, current events, tales found in a book. Chapters can be explored from left to right, and the storylines progress chronologically from top to bottom. Reveal them in order or roll D66 for a random event. All right, so because it's set up as a bit of a grid with chapters, each row being a chapter, and then the columns are storylines. So the columns are storylines, and so chapters can be explored from left to right. So we would pick chapter 1, and then we would go through that. Chapters can be explored from left to right, and storylines progress top to bottom. So I guess we would pick. So if we were starting at chapter 1, I think then we would pick. Okay. All right. I think I need some help here. So Ian said it reads top to bottom with progress happening to those different areas, factions. Okay. So it reads top to bottom. So we would pick a chapter, and I guess these are sort of storylines. I guess I'll use narrative. So let's just say, break it down. The storylines we have here are the Greater Antilles War, the Rise and Fall of Nassau, the Scourge of the New World, the Ashes of Tortuga, and the Wretched, and then one's called And the Wretched Exalted, and the last one's called Eldritch Tides of Doom. All right, I see that. Okay, I think I get it now. So you can kind of pick or roll, and there's a D66. So if you wanted to, and a couple things here you could do. You could roll a D66, which would tell you which chapter of each of those stories to start at. So, for example, if we rolled 16, we would get the Greater Antilles War as the kind of storyline or narrative that we're working through, but we would be at the final chapter of that story. So in terms of the backdrop, and that one would be the skies shift from smoke gray to crimson and putrid orange sunlight becomes a myth. So there you go. So kind of reminds me of, I guess, the when Mort Borg, they had, what was it called? Those kind of the two basilisks, and you can get those. Shoot, I forget the name of it, but basically, you know, it's this kind of setting the stage, so to speak. Or you could pick, so you could do that and just pick a totally random spot to start, or you could pick which one of those narratives you want to delve into and then go from chapter 1 to chapter 6 or whatever in between. So I think I've got it. So let's see. Ian says, so if you want an event to occur, you can roll a d6 and progress that line. Right. I think I got that. Here's a Homebrew says, this kind of thing is what has made me hesitant about picking up more Borg stuff. I shouldn't have to work that hard to read something. Yes, I do agree with you. You know, it's a lot of things go into play. But I think the one thing I'll say is, I think as long as I get the hang of this, so it took me a couple minutes, right? You saw me kind of work through it. All right, and okay, I think I got it. Now, if that sticks with me, and then when I come back, and presumably if I'm playing this game and I'm interfacing with it regularly, it's not confusing the second, third, fourth, fifth time, I think that's okay. I think a book asking you to suss things about a little bit is all right, provided that it becomes intuitive. If it's something that every time I open the book, every week, if I was running this game, it's a constant struggle for me to figure things out, then I think it's gone too far, I guess, if that makes sense. But you know, I think, and also I think, and this is no one's fault from their own, but you know, the kind of book format they're doing and the layout and everything, right? You sort of become a prisoner to the amount of space you have. So maybe in a perfect world, they would, I don't know where the page break would here, because I'm looking at the spreads version. So I guess it's probably the line here. You know, you could have more, they could clearly put in more information, but because of the way the book's laid out, they don't. But I think I've got it. And I think if I were to come back to this in a week, I think I would still have it. Noxious Bone says, I think it's been broken up that way because as the party travels, you can change which entry is relevant. If the PCs leave the area of one plot line, you can jump to the next closest point and continue. Yeah, it makes sense too. And Ian says that I know Mort Borg has a plain text version. I wonder if this does. I will say that I have a link to the drive-through in the show notes. If you don't have it, it seems like a bunch of you already do, which is awesome. And I know that if you're on drive-through anyway, when I went to download the book, there's a bunch of files in there. And unfortunately, I did not look to see what different files are. I saw some of them were character sheets that seemed like both in black and white color. Some other things. I was basically looking for the rule book, so I didn't do an inventory of what's in there, but there may very well be either a plain text version there, or maybe there is an alternate non-graphical version. Though I'm guessing they would keep that format. I mean, it's not like super nonsensical, but yeah, you know, it just took me a minute to grok it, but I think I got it now. Okay, on to creating a player character. I'm not going to spend a ton of time in the create a character stuff unless I feel like something different is happening. So the process, I'll just do over this part, is you roll each of the tables on the page, roll your ability scores. I like that they have page references for stuff that's not on this page. Choose or roll for a class. And then that affects the next 3 steps. You're going to roll on a D8, or you can use a D8 if you want to include a couple of optional classes. Get your starting hit points, get your weapon, clothing, and a hat. Got to have a hat. And then, you get some kind of devil's luck. That's cool. And then you get there's some tables that are not mentioned here. I guess we'll see it. And then finally, you name your pirate. And just this part you roll on, you get a container, you get some cheap gear, and you get some fancy gear. And there's a couple of sub-tables in here. Noxious Bone says they just prioritize art and flavor over legibility and mechanics. They definitely do. I think that's a little, I don't say it's unfair, because I definitely felt that way with Mort Borg. I'll say this. The first time I went through Mort Borg I think pretty much on this channel, live streaming, I had a harder time getting through it than I have when I've subsequently gone to look at it. So I have gotten more attuned or used to the art style. I definitely think I don't disagree with you. I think they do prioritize the art style. But in subsequent books, and I would think even here for the most part, granted that table, that grid, it took me a minute to get it, but like looking here at the ability scores, I think things are pretty clear. I think they've gotten to a good place. I guess what I would say is I think that they have, maybe if we say that if we had this spectrum, readability and then on one side and then, just graphics on the other side, they might have been a little bit ticked over on the graphics end more. I kind of feel like they found a nice middle ground, maybe a little bit on the graphics side, but not too much. On the other side would be something that's just like completely plain text, but super explanatory and readable. But I mean, look, they do prioritize their graphics. I mean, let's face it, though, as a, if we look overall at hobbyists as a buying population, whatever you want to call that, people prioritize graphics. I don't think there's any question that you could put the most amazing book in some kind of plain text version up against something that's much more mediocre but has awesome graphics and layout. People are going to flock to the awesome graphics and layout. I don't think anybody, I mean, I would need some serious proofs if someone was going to counter that. So I guess ultimately, they're kind of giving people what they've wanted. And I think also there's, in this kind of Borg, whatever, insert blank Borg lineup, people have a certain expectation, I think, at this point for the kind of graphical layout and look. So we got our ability scores. Modifiers go from -3 to +3. Abilities, we have our strength, agility, presence, toughness, and spirit. So the same, I think that's pretty much the same as Mork Borg. We have a little bit where it tells us about difficulty ratings and the kind of test, which is great. And it's nice that as players, you kind of get to see that. So you have an idea of what numbers are good, what numbers are bad. So it goes from 6, which is easy, to 18, which is almost impossible. Hey, we're playing in the water or around the water, so it's good to know about how long you can hold your breath before you start drowning. So we get a little note here on about holding your breath. We have some stuff about carrying capacity, which is also good. And now we have, what is this? Violence. All right, so the initiative's a D6. I guess we have one roll. I guess it's kind of a group initiative. I can't remember, but in any case, one person, I guess, for the party would roll. And I can't remember when I played. I've only played the Mork Borg that one time, and I don't remember how we did it. But basically, someone's going to roll a die, and either enemies go first or the player characters go first. Oh, I see it. Or you can, if you want to do an individual initiative for some reason, you can do agility plus D6. Noxious Bones says, you give me a cool rule, I can run a session, but you give me some cool art, and I can be inspired to run an entire campaign. There's an evocative trade-off in their choices, and I think it pays. Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Absolutely. I mean, that saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words, that's kind of part of it, right? Because I can write something amazing. Well, I don't know if I can write something amazing, but somebody can write something amazing and evocative, but it's going to take them a lot of time and space if they can even do it right. A really interesting image can really be evocative in many, many ways. The Dave says the part that each page is essentially its own art piece is amazing. Yes, I agree with that too. The design, layout, graphics they do for these books are really, really, really well done. I think even if you don't end up loving how much the art can sometimes dominate the content, I think it's kind of hard. I would think it'd be hard to argue against that point. Maybe some people do. So you get some initiative, critical hits on a natural 20, fumbles on a natural 1. And remember, PCs are rolling. The rolls are player facing, so the players are rolling there for offense and defense, which is why they have here for criticals and fumbles, both attack and defense. And they have a special fumbling with a black powder weapon, so we are going to get some black powder weapons. And then armors and tiers. Combat rounds are 6 seconds. We have movement. We have rests, short rests, long rests. If you don't have food or drink, or if you're infected, sick, bleeding, or poisoned. Reaction table and a morale table. So all pretty well laid out. Now, I think the one thing with this is for someone like me, perfect. This on this one page gives me, it's almost like a little GM screen. Or if I'm a player, like this is great because it's got just about everything I want for a bunch of different things all together here. Movement. What kind of rest do I need? How do reactions work? How does morale work? Okay. Oh, we got crits and fumbles. How do they work? Bam. Oh, black powder's their own fumble weapons. Great. Bam. Oh, what's armor? Okay. Bam. Now there's next to no text around these. So, and I don't know, and I guess supposed to be true with Morkborg Prime. Probably if you're a first-time GM, I would say if you're a first-time player, there's a GM who's experienced, they can kind of walk you through everything. But obviously, if you're a first-time gaming group doing nothing, I don't know that the way this is, I don't know how much sense this would make to you. This is definitely written from I think you're pretty familiar with RPGs, probably regular Morkborg and maybe even another Morkborg inspired game. So we're just going to kind of lay things out for you, but there's not a lot of guidance around anything. So we have hit points. At 0 hit points, what happens? You are broken, which is a great term. If you reduce to less than 0, you are dead, and you skip being broken. Gaining experience. The game master decides when a character should be improved. It might be after taking a prize, raiding a port, dividing the plunder, burying treasure, or exploring a temple. When this happens, you do some stuff. I guess one thing I'll say, I'm just not a fan of in general, in terms of the game master decides. I know that ultimately the game master is always deciding, because if I'm running a game, yes, I'm deciding or essentially placing or maybe tweaking, whatever, all the things that might be experience point driven in the game, I can tweak to suit my pace or whatever I want. But I kind of like that the players sort of choose, which is to say, I like the idea. I would just say that I'm not going to choose when you do these things, when you take a prize, raid a port, divide the plunder, bury treasure, explore temple, or maybe I feel like a lot of this is kind of the same. You do something dangerous, and then you go back with your treasure to either bury it or divide it. Then you get your experience and you potentially level up. However you want to do that. That's probably what I would do, as opposed to making the choice. Dave says at this point, most people know how to play a D20 based game. Well, I mean, you say that, but there are new people all the time. And I was just reading, I was literally looking on Facebook this morning, and there are actually some, Facebook, I think gets I don't know if it's a well-deserved kind of reputation for a lot of things, but there are actually some fairly active RPG groups on there that just never left Facebook when everyone was abandoning Facebook. And anyway, I've seen people ask questions in there. I think one of them was, hey, I'm a new DM. Like, I'm a new GM. How do I interpret the dice? Like, how do I know what the dice mean when I roll something? So there are people who are picking up these games new, or are new to the games, and Morkborg and these games, they're very pretty to look at. And what happens is somebody goes to a con for the first time, or not even necessarily a board gaming or tabletop con. It could be a comic convention, could be any kind of convention where somebody has these things. Sometimes relatives buy a gift. Someone goes to a game store and says, hey man, what's my nephew's kind of is sort of expressed an interest in role-playing games. What's a really kind of interesting kind of role-playing game? They like pirates and stuff. And someone goes, oh, here, Pirate Borg. So you never know who's going to get it. So it's easy to say like, oh yeah, they're all no, but you never know. But obviously this game, if I was working at that gaming store and they asked me, I'd probably say, let's start you off on something here, and then maybe down the line, look at Morkborg. As Ian says, assume nothing. Someone might find this in the library in 10 years. Yep. That is true. Ian said, someone definitely has to read over each section before you fully grok some other sections. It's not spending text explaining things covered elsewhere, which seems common in modern OSR style text. Yes. And I think that's the thing when people, a lot of people just would say, well, what do you need BX for when you have OSE? And BX and, Holmes, and I guess Beckme also, they were all trying to teach you the game, which is something that, like Ian said, a lot of modern OSR games are kind of assuming you know how to play, or maybe they give you a little bit, not really teaching you. And so the layout of BX, though it's not necessarily great as a reference, is really good for when you're just trying to learn. It's a great learning book. As a reference, that hurts it a bit. Something like OSC is a much better reference than BX. But in terms of learning the game, BX is much better. And yeah, I mean, that is something with just OSR games in general, and certainly this one also, not a great learning text. And I think we got to keep in mind, role-playing games are super popular, as mainstream as they've ever been, more mainstream than they've ever been. People are going to be finding these books are getting found in not just in specialty gaming shops, but in bookstores and in all kinds of odd places. And Ian said maybe in the library you're going to find this. So, and I'm not trying to ding the game on not having it. I get it. It's a small book. It's very focused. I'm just saying that it's just interesting, and maybe we need to think about in terms of other materials to go with these, or something to go with the fact that we might have gone from a place where, of course, if you're buying this very niche game, you would be familiar with other games that are a little bit less niche. But I feel like the world we're kind of entering into with the availability of these things means that these books are going to end up in circulations beyond that, and maybe finding kind of a middle space where you can give a little bit of background, but not necessarily bog your book down and, everyone's being their first how to GM for dummies kind of book. I don't know. But like I said, it's not particularly more, and I'm not trying to suggest that this game is worse or in some way lacking in it where other games are awesome at it, because it's kind of a characteristic in general of OSR type stuff. All right, so we got the experience stuff. Great. Here are our classes. I like this one with the kind of sort of Mayan art of an undead, or I guess I should say Mesoamerican art of an undead pirate. The Dave says, when I'm running a game, I'll have an area that goes in depth on the subject, but I'll also put that information where it's needed on the quick. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think it's good. It's good to have. I mean, there's no right way, right? I think it's just interesting because I think I think folks have had a good sense of what their audience is with these kinds of books. But I also think that audience might be changing. And I don't know if we're not trying to service that changing audience yet. Or maybe it'll never happen. I don't know. What the heck do I know? All right, so we have the Brute. And I'm not gonna go into super depth on these. I just want to get the flavor, really. So the Brute, when you're not bashing, smashing, slashing, or crashing, that's all you really know how to do. You can't use arcane rituals, but your muscles are basically magic. All right, cool. So we got an idea. They are literally a Brute. And they get some, I just want to read a couple of features. You start with a crusted weapon. It will never break, but you drop it on a fumble, and it has a small penalty to attack, and it gets a name, which you roll for. Might be a whaling harpoon, might be a brass anchor, a runic machete. And then when you gain experience, you get an ability. Let's take an example. What's one of these? Blood Frenzy. +1, or is that, sorry, +2 to damage rolls for each enemy you've killed so far this battle. Resets or ends after 10 rounds of no death. Okay. You might be basically a unarmed technician, or I don't know, unarmed combatant with tavern boxer. Could be thick-skinned. Oh, you could have grog breath. The Rapscallion, a sneaky cutthroat scallywag good at backstabbing, breaking and entering, stealing, cheating, and escaping. Found in taverns, shadows, and shallow graves. And for this one, you will need a deck of playing cards. All right, very nice. Let's see. So there's a bit here for drinking grog and rum. Test your toughness. Oh, I see. So you can heal some hit points when you're drinking grog and rum, but you have to make a test. If you succeed, you heal some health hit points. If you fail, you vomit for a couple of rounds, and then your agility suffers for each drink. Lasts 1 hour per drink. Okay, that's kind of cool. And then you have these other abilities that are written on the cards, which is cool. Could be a backstabber or backstabbing. Back there, they are backstabber, burglar, skylarker, sneaky bastard, lucky devil, and then you have a joker, devil, and then grog brewer. What do you need the cards for? What do you do with the cards? I can't see. Is there another page for this? No. All right, you need a deck of playing cards. I got that. Roll a d6 for your weapon. Go a d6 for a hat. Roll a d6 for a specialty. I got that. What do you need the cards for? Oh, I see. So let's read one of these abilities this way. So whenever you use the Devil's Luck, which is the name of the ability, you draw a card. If you get a card that's 9 or higher, you regain 1 luck. If it's a joker, you roll on the joker table. All right, so on the joker table, and I guess a couple of these You might have to go to the Joker table. Maybe not. I want to roll from the Joker table. Interesting. So the Joker table, if you roll let's see, you roll a 1, it's a 20 d20. On a 1, the devil comes for your soul. You're sucked into a fiery portal. This is the end of your story. So yeah, on a 1, 5% chance, you're gone. On a 20, you might gain 4 luck points, and presumably the ones in between are slightly less good than that, but better than dying. And we get the Buccaneer. Skilled trackers and survivalists, expert sharpshooters, especially with muskets and rifles. Reloading black powder weapons takes you 1 round instead of 2. You start with a musket and some shot when you begin, and when you get experience, you can roll for a feature. All right, and they can be taken twice. So you have treasure hunter, crack shot, fixed bayonets, focused aim, buck and cook, and survivalist. Cool stuff. So kind of a ranger of the seas sort of deal. The swashbuckler. All right, let's see. You begin, well, it doesn't really say too much about it, but you begin with one of the following fighting styles. Okay, so maybe this is basically your fighter type. You might be an ostentatious fencer, a flintlock fanatic, a scurvy scalawag, an inspiring leader, or a knife knave, or a black powder poet. And then you can also game, so the kind of abilities you can get are Shakespeare of insults, military mastermind, sword master, intimidating presence, dazzling acrobatics, or calculating cutthroat. So kind of your fightery type, but with a twist, a little flavor, which I like. And then we have the zealot, a clergy member, cultist, shaman, or believer. Thou may use ancient relics and arcane rituals whilst wearing medium armor or lower, tier 2 or lower. When thou doth begin, and every time thou doth improve, learn a single random prayer. Thou may use prayers, sometimes a day. Reroll when dawn breaks. It consumes thy action to pray, but doth not require a roll or test. I like that. And so the prayers, we're thinking, kind of cleric-y stuff. You can heal, you can curse, you can death ward, you can control weather, you can give blessed guidance, or I guess receive blessed guidance. You can look, let's see, gain holy protection, issue divine light, silence, grant sanctuary, or commune. Very cool. Whom dost thou serve? And you can roll to see whether it's the one true God, Mother Nature, the ancient gods, chaos, the deep, the dark one, the church, the great old one. All right, so kind of a sort of cleric druid potentially all rolled into one. Now we have a sorcerer, an eldritch occultist, frail and enigmatic. They are conduits for meddlesome natural spirits and devious necromantic entities. Drawing your power from supernatural spirits and ghosts, you are weak in body, but strong with the old magic of the world. You can use ancient relics and arcane rituals when wearing medium armor, but never while near cold iron or while holding metal. All right. You can summon a flying ghostly skull, perhaps. You can also cause a random creature to be possessed by a spirit. You can summon a protective ghost or spirit. You can do clairvoyance. You can force a living creature to appear to fall over dead. It says, but when they awake, they remember everything. So I guess if you're going to use that as an offensive type stuff, just remember that whenever they wake up, they're remembering what you did to them. And you can also potentially raise the dead. It says it's a Slimer Wrangler. That's true. Well, yeah, I guess this is like Victorian. Maybe that's what Victorian Slimer looked like. And it looks like you can have I guess with that raise the dead, you can create a skeletal thrall, which is cool. And okay, so you also have a haunted soul, a possessed, infected, cursed, troubled, or undead individual. One of those. So you might be a ghost, a conduit, an eldritch mind, a zombie. You might suffer from vampirism, or you could be a skeleton. I mean, does that make it hard to go into towns and stuff? What do people think about kind of aware, I suppose, not mindless skeletons or zombies? But definitely a cool wrinkle. Yes, Brian Smith says troubled seems a lot lower than the other. I think it's a little bit of a joke because there's none of these options are. I mean, you can be infected with vampirism. I suppose the conduit would maybe be, that's possessed. Yeah, I'm not sure which one of those. They're all troublesome. They're all are troubled, rather. I'm not sure. Dave says, I guess that depends on the world. Yes, it does. I guess I asked because the world that they seem to suggest is that things are under siege from the undead. So then but then you might be in town and there's some kind of walking skeleton or zombie going around just conducting business. I guess it's just interesting, right? It's just a wrinkle. Okay, so what do we have? So this is an optional. So we have some optional classes. One is merfolk, or I guess, yeah, merfolk, an aquatic mutant, a sentient animal. I like that. A fowl, a jaguar, a crocodile, a bilge rat, a lucky parrot, or a clever monkey. Those could be kind of fun. Ian says, sounds to me like haunted souls are more and more common each day. Yep, for sure. And we got some starting weapons, a marlin spike or belaying pin, a knife or bayonet, muskets, boarding pikes, the classics, cat o' nine tails, nasty. And we have some equipment that I'm not going to read through. You've got it all very concisely laid out. Let's see about let's see, is there anything interesting in the range? So blunderbuss. I see. So the blunderbuss does D4, except if you're under 10 feet away, you would do a D10. But man, if you're 10 feet away from a blunderbuss, that's just trouble. Ian says it might be interesting to only allow those first classes when starting a campaign, but allow the later ones as some events happen. Yeah, you could definitely, right, just start with this kind of a smaller scope, and then maybe as things happen or apocalypse-y kind of things start to get even weirder than they already are, then maybe you could ramp in some of those other classes. Or just wait till somebody dies and then say, oh, hey, you died, but you want to be the ghost, your ghost. Or you want to devolve into a zombie or skeleton, you do that. Now you have the Devil's Luck. Every class gains a number of Devil's Luck points. Landlubbers begin with D2. After resting at least 6 hours, if and only if your luck is depleted, roll your class's designated die and regain that much luck. Use the Devil's Luck to deal max damage with one attack, lower damage dealt to you by a D6, reroll any die roll, lower one test difficulty by -4, or neutralize a crit or fumble. So there are lots of things you can do with that. And then we have D100 backgrounds on the next page. You got a lot. And it gives you both the background and then some stuff you might begin with. So, for example, if you begin as a nobody, you begin with 2d4 times 10 silver and a desire for a purpose. Nice. Or if you're a whaler, you might begin with 2d6 times 10 silver and a harpoon. I think, okay, they don't all have 2d6 times 10, though most of them do. So there you go. Distinctive flaws. Also always fun. You could be stupid. I mean, this I kind of like. I'm never been a big fan of the kind of intelligence thing. But if you want to roll or have a flaw that says you're stupid, then you can just role play that accordingly. It doesn't seem like these have mechanical things. These are kind of your role playing cues, and I would probably treat them as such. Physical, what does that say? Trademark? Physical? Is that trademark? It's got to be. Physical trademark. Kind of, I guess, a scar or some other, I guess, physical trademark. I guess that works. You could be cursed. You could be missing an eye. You could have matted, dreaded hair. You might have a peg leg or a crutch. Notice these things they're not giving any indication this stuff affects your speed or that missing an eye affects your perception abilities. You just got them. So you whatever these trademarks have, they're essentially flavor, which I think is also fine, especially in a game like this. There's enough stuff going on. It can be harsh enough world. You got an eye. It's kind of assume that you've figured out how to adjust your game to cope with missing an eye or having a peg leg or whatever it is. Idiosyncrasies. One might have developed and will certainly never be rid of, yet that certainly won't stop you from trying. And again, you can roll a 20-sided die. I wonder if you're supposed to roll these at a particular time as opposed to starting with them. But it's stuff like you smoke constantly and cough even more. You secretly enjoy the taste of human flesh. You might want to keep that a secret. You're always trying to trick your crewmates just for fun. You collect something and you often talk to your collection. They are your friends. So that's the idiosyncrasies. And then you also have another table for unfortunate incidents and conditions having occurred or developed with or without one's express consent, desire, knowledge, or general understanding. These are things you might want to roll up at the beginning of the game, or they might develop during the game, but it might be something like your loved ones are burned alive, revenge is imminent, you narrowly escaped a cannibalistic ending, but you didn't escape that smell, you slaughtered them like animals. And they're not pulling punches here, so, if you're with folks who have that might be sensitive to certain topics, you might want to pre-read those or pre-roll them or do something else so that you don't end up accidentally having someone confront someone that they're not comfortable confronting. Hey, Limitron, well, look at that. A great honor is amongst us, assuming that it's the person who worked on this book. Welcome aboard. And he says that's what they do for a campaign. D8 is fun for one-shots. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Fluffy the Griffin says, slaughtered like animal, the women and children too. Yeah. That's your Anakin in the Anakin in the desert. Anakin with the sand people in the desert moment. Though I don't like those movies, but still. All right. Do we need some things of importance? Of course we do. Ryan says, sorry, friend, your character smells like cannibalism for the rest of the campaign. I think I would like that as a shortcut. You smell cannibalism. You enter the inn and you just. So now here's the thing, though. For that character who knows that's like can't forget that smell, if there was cannibalism happening like somewhere, like a kind of a, what's that, Sweeney Todd situation in a tavern somewhere, I would totally have them pick up on the smell. Well, sorry you can't stay, Limitron, but hey, hit me up offline or give me somewhere I can show up offline or forget, because I'd love to have you on to talk about it. I probably could arrange this through Free League, but since you're here, I'd love to have you on at some point. So I'll look for you on social media. Maybe we can connect and you can come on the channel to chat. But thanks for jumping in, and ahoy to you, sir. All right. Everyone needs things of importance. And here we have a D100 table filled to the brim with things of importance. I'm guessing some of these might not be super important, but maybe it depends on who they belong to. So you have an animal pelt, a human skull, an animal skull, blueprints of a new type of ship. Ooh, that could be interesting. Broken set of manacles. Who wore those manacles? 6 foot length of chain. Awesome. Well, Limitron, I don't want to sidetrack things, but I'm Hexed Press or Hexed Pressman anywhere on social media. Either I will look for you or you can look for me, and we can take it offline and work some out. And good luck on the actual play. Is if you're posting it, and post a link to your actual play if it's going on YouTube or somewhere, because I'd like to check it out, and I'm sure folks in here would like to check it out too. Home of the Griffin loves this just for the random lists. Even if they don't play the game, these lists are amazing. Yep, they're a lot of fun. Can't really have too many lists. I mean, I suppose you can, just in terms of you need to find a list. But yeah, lists are good. We have some ancient relics. Cross of the Paragon, a conch shell from the Abyss, a map inked in ectoplasm. Oh, I like that one. A will-o'-the-wisp lantern. That sounds like one of the items I made for Sword Timber, almost. A rune-encrusted flintlock pistol, an undead bird, mermaid scales, Charon's or Charon's obol. Very fitting since I just played in a game where my character had a class that had one of those. So ancient relics. Relics can be used to access ancient magical powers. Use your action to activate one in your possession. After using a relic, you have to test your spirit. If you fail, you are stunned for the next round, and that relic cannot be used until the next dawn. On a fumble, the relic is permanently destroyed or depleted, and then you lose some hit points. The GM decides the effect on a crit, if any. So I'll just go, let's see. Let's pick one of these. The Necklace of Eyeballs allows you to become invisible for some number of rounds, or until you attack or take damage, and then you attack or defend with a difficulty of 6. And let's see, the Crown of the Sunken Lord is a water shield that surrounds you, gives you some protection for some number of rounds. Only one more. What's one? The Mummified Monkey Head. The head speaks. One creature has to do a test or obey a one-word command. Very cool. Let's see. It doesn't say if these have... So I guess you can keep using them until they fail? Or until you after using a relic, you have to test that spirit. So if you have high spirit, you probably want to put your relics in the person with a high spirit, because they're going to have more of a chance to be able to use these more than once in a given day. Assuming, again, I'm not reading through all these, so some of them may have charges concept, but Oh, the Dave just sent me Limithron's Discord channel link. Appreciate it there, the Dave. Legend tells of ancient artifacts buried deep inside tombs or lost at sea. There are some who believe these objects hold the key to great magical power. Indeed. All right, now we get some rituals, aka spells. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'll read the kind of descriptive part, and I'll skip over the individual entries, I guess. Some call it magic, others faith. Ancient powers have existed in this world long before the age of man, but their potency and characteristics differ from culture to culture, often accessed via voodoo, witchcraft, divine prayers, science, or spiritual ceremonies. While some rituals may be found in the libraries of the old world, transcribed into dusty tomes and ancient grimoires, many are handed down via word of mouth or serendipitously discovered by those whose minds are properly prepared to receive them. Every dawn, you roll a die to see how many times you can cast rituals that day, and then you can use an action or longer, and then you make a test to attempt to cast a ritual you know, and then if you succeed, you've casted a ritual, so you can then subtract one from your daily total, and then there's some mishaps if you fail. Maybe I'll read some of the mishaps. And we got a bunch. Call the Sea, Curse of the Drowned, Phantasmal Fauna, Release the Kraken, always release the Kraken. The Black Spot, so on and so forth. And now we get some mishaps. Effects in italics are things the caster might not immediately realize. Interesting. So basically, it is a D20. So, for example, one of the italicized text, as it says, something the caster might not really immediately realize. Now, we're not told, well, what does that mean? We'll have to figure that out ourselves as GMs, but let's just take the number one. You roll a one. I don't know if this is worse than the other ones because it's kind of in that crit fail spot, but on a one, all before you vanishes and you are alone on a gray island, a figure robed in black can be seen on a boat in the distance. And the italicized text says, welcome to purgatory. I guess essentially you're dead. Karen is there, or Charon, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But you might not be immediately aware, so you could probably have fun role-playing that a bit if you wanted to. Or you could just kind of fade to black, I guess. And then let's just pick one other that's got some italicized text. Okay, so on 10, your vision permanently fills with water and the world around you looks submerged and obfuscated. All right, so basically you've got kind of bad vision from here on out. However, you see like a fish underwater. So there is a benefit, and given that you're in a seafaring campaign, depending on your class and character and whatnot, it might actually be an okay bargain. At least you can always stick your head underwater and see clearly. So some cool mishaps. Always good to have some mishaps. We get some sea shanties. Often learned in seaside taverns and from old sea dogs, most shanties are mindless distractions sung by sailing crews, but some are more than just songs and can unlock the true capability of a crew and the sea. Each day, the crew can sing a number of sea shanties equal to 1 plus the captain's spirit. So interesting is, it'd be interesting to get a little bit more, and maybe we do, maybe we don't, on what it means to be the captain. You know, would you always just pick the person with the highest spirit? Would that just be the captain for the whole campaign? Would you rotate? But obviously here there's a mechanical reason you might want to pick the one with the most spirit. Choose from your crew's known shanties and test their crew skill. Crew skill. We haven't gotten into skills, or crew rather, unless I passed it. If the crew succeeds, the shanties effect is activated. Okay, so I don't need to get into the mechanics so much. But there's just a couple of these. It's a D12. One of them is 15 men on a dead man's chest. The ship gains some luck that it can use like a PC. One might be Captain Kidd. Attacks from this ship are, I guess, easier or less difficult for a couple of rounds. Fire down below. All fires in the ship are extinguished, and it repairs D6 hit points, I'm assuming, of the ship. And there's more, but you get the gist. Ooh, there's more. There's more. Now we get alchemy. You can create some potions generators. So first we have a D20. That's just the roll, but I like that it has some symbology next to the numbers. We have 2 ingredients, a resulting color, and a delivery method. And then there's another table that's D20 with the effect and also the difficulty rating. So first, let's just say I'm just going to go across. So if we rolled 3 ones in a row or 4 ones in a row, the ingredients would be rum, wildflowers, which would, when you mix those together, it would turn black, and you'd have to inhale it. Okay. Oh, I guess I should have read this first. There is a methodology here. So you can do a fast way, which is roll a d20 and read straight across, which is what I did. Random is you roll 60-20 and let fate decide, add extra ingredients to taste, or precise, pick and choose like the true alchemist you are. So essentially just going on the random one. So we picked one. So we got rum, wildflower, mix them together, black, you inhale it, and the effect, I guess, is a DR8, and the effect is instant horrific death, or after the subject is killed, resurrect with 1 hit point. Ooh, that's interesting. So if you give it to someone who's alive, it's going to kill them. But if they're already dead, then you can resurrect them with 1 hit point. So really cool. So you can, as they say, if you just need something really quick and dirty, bam, you just basically roll 1d20 and just go all the way across. Or you can roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for each of the columns to get something all more random, or you can pick and choose. So just in terms of because I was wondering about the difficulty rating. So the difficulty rating can be used as a toughness for resistance or the presence to craft it. So for example, that one I went over, in this case, we could say, okay, this black wildflower rum dust that either kills you or brings you back. It could be that if someone did inhale it, they'd have to beat toughness DR8. We could also say that it takes presence difficulty of 8 to craft it. Right. And you get a bunch of those. And those are also very, very cool. And I think pretty thematic also. All right, so we needed naval combat. We would assume we'd need naval combat, and we get naval combat. Yeah, so we have HP, which is basically, I'm surprised they don't just say hull points, because that's kind of, I think that's what HP came from. So we have your hit points, you have your hull, which is basically armor, agility, is how maneuverable it is, speed, how fast, skill, that's your crew skill rating. Broadside is how much your main cannons do, small arms for your swivel guns and muskets, ram for how much damage when you ram, crew for the minimum and maximum crew the ship can carry, and cargo. I'm not going to go through all the details here, but it's here. And I kind of I'm more interested actually in the crew and captain kind of part of it than I am in the actual combat, but you've got it, right? You need it. You're going to need it. You're on the high seas. You're going to have to fight things on ship at some point. So it's good that we have it. And Brian Smith says that they love the balance struck here between ease of use, flexibility, and evocative words. Yep, I would agree. All right, so you have the crew. Ships without enough crew can only take 1 crew action. I see. Okay, ships can carry double their max crew for short distances, aka less than a day. We're going to note that ship combat rounds are dynamic. That's fine. Brian says, it's perfect for my amateur boat swaining hobby. Yeah, I think it works for all of us. We have some movement stuff, so you get those great movement charts. Reminds me of Car Wars from back in the day, where all the turning radii and all that stuff. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the combat steps here. I don't really have a base of reference to say, oh, this is great naval combat rules or not great naval combat rules. So I'm going to assume that they're going to be at least usable. And I'll wait for folks to tell me whether, yes, they are really great, or they're kind of problematic or whatnot. Maybe someone has done some simulations with these rules to determine things, but I'm going to pass on through. And this is, I don't know if I mentioned, this is watered down apple cider for the working man. And you get some crew actions, just stuff you're doing. That's fine. Here we go. Maritime travel. You can move up to your speed in 50-mile hexes each day. In the dark Caribbean, ships traveling northeast, east, or southeast move -1 hex per day because of the winds, and I'm guessing the winds and the currents. So you can get some specialty crew. Some NPCs and experienced PCs might improve or hinder a ship they crew. Use the list for ideas. Okay, so you might be a legendary captain, a veteran quartermaster, a strict bosun, a master gunner, a master of sails, a deck sorcerer or priest, a master carpenter, or you might have a drunk crew. Those are all cool. They do have skill and a morale table for when you've taken your crew and things are either going good or bad, how that modifies their skills. So if they've been suffering from a shortage of food, that's going to hurt. If it's a shortage of water, that's worse. If there's no rum, even worse. It's kind of like that bit on was it Airplane, where they're listing all things that are going on, and finally and we're out of coffee, and that's when everybody goes crazy. It's like, and we're out of rum, and then people start to go berserk. And then test morale, great. We have cargo and stuff on repairing, careening. Ships need. I don't even know what careening means. I mean, I know the word, but I'm not on this context actually. But I'm not a naval man, so. Ships need to be careened every 3 months to remove barnacles and shipworms and to repair leaks and hull damage. Okay, I guess I never knew that was called careening. I always think of something careening out of control, but maybe that's spelled the same way? I don't know. And then we've got repairs and shipwright repairs and upgrades that you can do. Wow, so now if you want to get even more into it, we've got optional wind rules, changing winds, and foul weather. Also a table for flotsam and jetsam, and then a table for sea encounters, with the Kraken being on that number 1. Got to have that. And then some D20 events table. Stuff like a huge shark or sea monster harasses the hull. Or a slimy ghost is spotted eating the food in the galley. That's very Slimer-esque. Or some mermaids visit the ship. Secretly roll a reaction to know their intent. Puff the Griffin says careening equals beaching. Yeah, something like that. I don't know what other word I would use, but I know you need to clean the stuff off. I guess I never associate that with the word careening. But like I said, I don't have much naval knowledge. Let's see. Brian asks, have I ever participated in a good naval combat or pirate encounter type thing? No, I don't know that I have, but I haven't played many games where we've really gone on the high seas. I feel like in the games where I've done sci-fi ship combat. I've done a lot of that. And one stream I'll go through it's up in Studio B. I've got a stack of materials from this long sci-fi game I was in. It's about this big, and that's like all player materials. My Empire, and I don't want to sidetrack too far, but in this game I played in for about 15 years, we had our own galactic empires that we would develop. And I'll probably do more on the whole story, but at one point, my empire got invaded, and I had to fight off an invasion from another player character, for another player's empire. And there was some fun to be had there. That's a story for another day. But in terms of fantasy campaigns, what ends up happening, or my experience has been, I haven't really done much sea stuff myself, unless it's a setup for something like Isle of Dread, where it's like you're on the boat, and then you come ashore, and this is where the adventure is. Or your ship has crashed or sunk, whatever kind of thing. But this would definitely be fun, and it would be interesting. Maybe at some point I'll look around and see what other rules I have for the naval moving around. I don't know if I don't think, does the Wilderness Survival Guide have sea rules? I know that some of the like AD&D and stuff, they have rules, but maybe it might be good to go and do a comparison. I just don't have much to be able to say on a practical level, like this rule is great because this, that, or the other for naval movement stuff, because it just hasn't just been a thing for me. So yeah, like Brian says afterwards, like not against them, they just have failed to come up in any game I've played, unfortunately. Yep, that tends to be my experience. But having these things means I might be more likely, especially if they're easy to use. Because I used to love Car Wars and those things back in the day, but I'm not, unless you're really into that kind of almost war gamey part of it, where you're really plotting out the turn angles and all that stuff. I mean, in Car Wars, that's kind of the game, so that is what it is. But in a role-playing game, do I want to do that? I'm not sure. As Brian says, this amount of details for mechanics seems like plenty. Yep, I would agree with that also. Now we have some different boats you can get from a raft, a piragua, a tartane, a canoe, a longboat, a sloop. Oh, I used to love sloops. When I played Sid Meier's Pirates, I used to just love to just run havoc with sloops. Small, yes, but quick. And you got the hang of that. It was always awesome feeling when I'll take my little sloop in and start just hammering galleons, and I'm just moving around too fast. They couldn't turn fast enough to get their guns on me, and I would just continue to just beat on them. It was a lot of fun. Man of Wars, Ship of the Lines. We have forts. Ooh, now we get some more unusual ones. Ghost ships, ships of bone, vessels from the deep. And now we get some, I guess these are, monsters, right? These are, I guess, land monsters. Bilge rats, palm vipers, rabid jaguars, three-headed monkeys, necro swine. And then some flying. So I like to kind of set up terrestrial creatures, flying creatures separately, and then aquatic creatures, of which we get the most aquatic ones, like chthonic octopi or zombie sea turtles. And then I also get some, oh, nice. We even get flora. That's a nice, this is something that gets overlooked a lot. The flora, not like ents and things that are kind of creatures that are sort of plant-like, but they're essentially kind of monsters, but things that are literally plants. And we've got some tables for making your own enemies. Always fun, including you can roll for hit points, morale, armor, damage, and something special. And we got a whole bunch of skeletons, lookouts, rank and instead of rank and file, rank and file. Nice. Deadeye. Got some guns, a Hulk, which I guess is like a brute, but skeletal form. So you need your ghost ship, or you've got your undead ship, or just undead people crawling ashore. I like that you can. They have a whole bunch of different ones you can use, because it's great to be able to mix and match different types of skeletons that got their own sort of abilities and stuff. That's pretty awesome. Fluffy the Griffin says that there is a game called Atomic Highway, free rule set for a Mad Max inspired post-apocalyptic game. Ooh, I will. Fluffy the Griffin, remind me, because I'm sure I will forget after I stream, and that's where I get off here and do some more stuff. But I will definitely want to come back to check that out. So I'll try to remember Atomic Highway, but if I forget, throw it to me somewhere on social media or something so I can mark it, because I would love to take a look at it. And then we have zombies, bilge rats, deck ghouls. Ooh, the grog barrel. I like he's got it. I like that the grog barrel zombie kept their powdered wig. And the admiral. And we have ghosts. A ghost monkey. Gotta have a ghost monkey. Ghost crew, ghost quartermaster, and a ghost captain. Scavenging seagulls. Oh, that's by Pella. So here we go. This is from the original Murkburg. Murkburg has created some critters, a scavenging seagull, an obscure oyster cult, not a blue oyster cult, but an obscure oyster cult. I'm surprised he didn't have one for blue in there, but I guess he's got two names. So he might be the molluscan depth cult. Those are cool. And we have some got some kind of Cthulhuoid stuff here at the end. Deep ones, the drowned, gorilla crabs, and sea wraiths. Gorilla crabs, that's nice. Sirens, black coral crabs, and the coral shoggoth. That's right. You better watch out where you start eating oysters. Absolutely. Undead megalodon. Yeah, you want to be careful of those. And then the kraken. Looks like it's what is it spewing at that? Or are they killing it so it's bleeding? Is that blood spraying, or is that some kind of thing it sprays out? Let's see. It doesn't have an attack. That must be the ship doing that to it. And we have Davy Jones. Looks like a giant sea turtle. And Leviathan. And then let's see. Christian Eichhorn. It's got some, what were these? Marrow cannons. Marrow cannons? So marrow cannons are sentient undead weapons. Skilled necrosmiths plunder graveyards and battlefields to build these contraptions from human, livestock, and fish remains. The mightiest cannons feature smoothbore whalebone barrels and carry the names of the cities they first reduced to rubble. That's an awesome bit of lore. So you got Marrow Carronade, Marrow Mortar, the Bane of Barbados. I guess it's cool. And then we have some archetypes. The Naval Mastermind, the Inquisitor, the Necromancer, the Sunken One. And we get sails. If you see sails on the horizon, I suppose that you get to roll the class, the armament, the crew quantity, the crew quality, and the name, and their cargo. And an optional plot twist. Oh, Brian Smith said, on the Kraken, maybe it's munching a crew, or is that a blood tornado? Could be all of the above. Why only one? And now, okay, you gotta have derelict ships, right? Your ghost ships, the what is it? The lost, not the Lost Dutchman. Was it the Flying Dutchman? So where is it? What happened? What type of ship is it? What's in one of the rooms? What kind of odd features does it have? What kind of development might arise? Who are the current occupants? What is the original cargo? And what condition, I guess, is the cargo in? I think is what it means. All excellent things to ask. And now you can have the whole D100 of buried treasure, including 1 million pieces of 8 with the text, good luck. Yeah, good luck getting 1 million gold pieces or silver, whatever, out of wherever it is. And then we have treasure maps. Got to have treasure maps. This could be, I would bookmark this one for use, even if I wasn't in this game. Type of map, material, the geography, where does it start? Ooh, it uses invisible ink that is revealed when, and what's the complication? Oh, so if we're going to draw the map, we've got some icons to help with that. What is it contained in? What are some markers? What direction does it go? And is there even a riddle? Obviously, the riddles, if you use this enough, you'll run out, but that's fine. You can look online for more riddles, but it's cool to have some out of the box with their solutions, thankfully. And then the writer of Swordfish Islands, Jacob Hurst, has created some Uncharted Islands tables for us. To get size, terrain, vegetation, prominent natural feature, notable animal inhabitants, then regular inhabitants, then where the best place to hide treasure might be on the island. Anything here that's worthwhile, like worth a fortune, what natural hazards are there, what current conflicts are there, and what is darkness? I'm not sure what darkness is, but I guess something, what is the thing of some kind of evil that's here? Hey, Magnus, welcome. Stomping a pirate can be dangerous to your health. Roll 3d12, read these tables from A to C, save the dice. Look at the dice you rolled. The greatest result is morale. The lowest result, +2, is its hit points. Whichever table has the highest result is its armor. All right, so I guess this is just create a pirate. And you get all kinds of names, a couple of tables. So it could be a rugged individual with horrible breath wielding a pair of fists. And his name is Esteban Perez, Sir Esteban Perez. And Dave says, darkness, my old friend. Yeah. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Exactly. And now we have jobs and quest tables. Man, this book is chock full. On page 126, by the way, if you're keeping count. And a table full of rumors. And now we get to an adventure, The Curse of Skeleton Point. All right, I think what I'm going to do, because I'm already over time, almost at an hour and a half. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this up to you guys. Instead of just spoil this and going through, let me know, comments, whatever, as I wind this thing down, if you'd like me to go through the adventure, or would you prefer that it remain unspoilt? I'm happy to oblige either way. Magnus asks, does this include ship combat? It does, Magnus. If you, when we're done, if you want to roll back a little ways, not that far from this timestamp right now. I didn't go through it though. You'll get to see the pages. So the reason, Magnus, is I didn't go through it is I don't have a ton of experience running naval combat. It is something that doesn't come up super much for me. I'm glad to have it. I'm interested in it, kind of just that it's there. And I thought if there's enough interest and people ask about it, maybe I'll do some kind of comparison of some different ship combats, but it looked like it gives some good amount of rules with some good amount of mechanics. Doesn't seem to go overboard in too much minutia. So it looks good. And it is there for you if you need it, because it would be weird if, given the theme, everything here, if they didn't have ship rules. But they have some good kind of naval travel and combat rules. I just can't speak to them over much. And instead of spending a bunch of time reading through it line by line and not having much to offer, I figured I would just kind of leave it there, but it is there. Oh man, go over the adventure with the creator like commentary on a DVD. Whew. We'll see about that. But let me know if you guys want to are interested in me going over the adventure in some way. I don't know if going through it with the creator, but this is in the cards, but I'll see. I'll reach out. I'll see. Who knows? One never knows. But for the moment, I'll leave it here, and you can just be if you don't own the book already, you can be tempted by the name here, The Curse of Skeleton Point. And obviously, if you own the book already, though, then you know you've already got the adventure, and you probably have read it. Dave says, it would be weird if you had a game like Spelljammers without ship combat rules. Aha, I see what you're doing there, Dave. And yes, it would be weird. But weirder things have happened. As I mentioned, Free League was kind enough to send me the book, but obviously they didn't have any input on what I was going to say about it, since I didn't have any input on what I was going to say about it until I said it. Haven't pre-read the book. I will afterwards go and check the promotional box just so everything is square, but thanks again to them for sending it to me. I will try to get a hold of, what is the gentleman's name? I don't want to forget, but I'm already forgetting. Limithron. Try to get a hold of him, see if he can come on and chat about it. But this is a really great read. I think this is, look, I mean, I was going through it rather quickly. Tons of tables. You get the beautiful artwork and layout that the Borg and associated works are known for. Other than maybe that one table where I think you can make an argument might be a little bit more designy than is good for it in terms of readability. Didn't really find anything out of line, confusing, anything like that. And even that one table, it took me a minute to grok it, but I don't think it would be something that would be problematic overall. Lots of great inspirational tables. And I think the best mark of a book like this is it has tables that I would use even if I never decide to touch Borg as an actual thing. There's a bunch of stuff in here that I could see using. And, having just finished working on a Borg conversion to OSE, it's not terribly difficult. I mean, granted, I suppose when folks start playing through Kavlov Sanctuary, they may quibble with me on some of the choices that we made in terms of conversion, but it isn't even, I don't find it terribly, especially for a home game, terribly difficult to convert that stuff. So even for some of the mechanics, easy enough to convert over. And of course, you just have all these tables that give you just tons of options and inspiration, which are not tied to any particular mechanic and therefore are useful regardless of the setting or system that you're playing in. Play with the Griffin says, what a disappointment that was. Oh, I think talking about the 5th edition Spelljammer book. Yeah. I mean, the good thing is you've always got Spelljammer original stuff, which I think is on drive-through digitally. So you can get a hold of the older Spelljammer stuff if you're really into it. But I don't want to get sidetracked on that. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in comments and etc. If you'd like me to go through that adventure. Magnus asked if they should try to do a Sword Timber speed run. Absolutely, Magnus. Absolutely do it. And come to the forums and post your stuff. I have to go through a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to post one for Work in Progress Wednesday. I got to see which today's thematic word or whatever word is. Got to look at that, but that's something else. Folks, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I will talk to you later. Bye now.